Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Small Talk. I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer, and yes, we get to use the word wife.
Finally, yes.
Because this week we got married.
We did, yes, we got married. Mm-hmm. It's done.
It's done.
After, 7 years of engagement?
7 years of engagement, 10 years of being together, although I think it's almost 11 years. Mm-hmm. And many an intro where we say partner or fiance. It's really exciting to now be able to say wife.
Forevermore. Done.
Forevermore.
Sorted.
It hasn't really changed anything in our day-to-day life.
Well, not yet.
But it's nice.
Yeah. I still haven't let myself go. I don't know if that's going to be something that's going to happen all of a sudden. Oh, awkward.
Awkward.
Maybe that had already happened.
I'm just kidding. So that was really exciting. And actually, it was very spur of the moment. We just decided to do it because if you don't know already, we had planned to get married in 2020. Of course, we picked 2020 to get married and had a bit of a disaster in the planning, as many couples did over that time.
Anything that got planned for 2020 did, yes.
And so then it was kind of just on the back burner and we hadn't thought about it again. And then it just happened that we looked at the diary and, the schedule for the town hall, and there happened to be one date available over the next
one day,
2 months, and we were just like, let's do it. And we knew we were going to America, and we're like, oh, that's very close after we get back, but it was perfect. It was perfect, and we're super happy. And thank you to everyone who shared so much love on social media for our one photo that we posted.
Yes, felt very showered in love, and support, which was really lovely.
And hopefully we'll have some more photos. But the photo that we shared, you can see that we weren't wearing like traditional white. It wasn't a big wedding. In fact, the whole ceremony took 7 minutes. From start to finish.
And I think that included this time when you're signing.
Yeah.
So that's, we're just like kind of dead time signing. And
So we had a 7-minute ceremony. But what we were wearing, I was wearing a green jumpsuit actually.
Very cool.
And tell them about your outfit.
Well, in my mind, I was like, when you're kind of thinking, and I've never been the kind of wedding type, so I never had dreams of I'm going to wear this. And so that was actually quite a stressful thing of going, what am I going to wear? And in my mind, I was like, well, actually, what I would love to wear is something that is colorful or something that is from that store that I wear everything from. Obviously not this because it's our merch, but every single colorful top that you see me wearing is usually from one store, Gorman. But because they're very colorful, I'm like, they're usually very informal. Weirdly, they just happen to have this one outfit that is just like that top and those pants that together almost look like a jumpsuit when you put them together. That doesn't actually match anything else in the store. It's like a completely out of vibe with the rest of the store, and yet it was just perfect for what I wanted, and it was so comfortable, and I just felt so good in it, and it was
looked great, and it was like glittery gold color.
It was just perfect. Yeah, and it ended up being from the store that I wanted it to be from. So
so
we couldn't have asked for it.
Very last minute went shopping for our outfits. Maggie was done in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, no.
Well, and actually it was your sister who had done some preliminary scouting. Yeah, that's it. Looking around and sent us some ideas, and so that had been one of them. Like, oh, okay, cool. I'll try it on and see. And it was perfect. It was just meant to be. Yeah. And then you were panicking.
I was panicking because I was like, well, now all the attention's on me and I've got to find something. Anyway, it all worked out for the best. It was a beautiful, rare, sunny day here in Melbourne. So
it was meant to
lovely.
be raining the entire week, and then weirdly it didn't. And it was the sun was out.
Yeah, it was really nice. Anyway, we'll talk about, if you're interested in more about our wedding, we will be talking about that in our members podcast. But for now, we will move on to some IAQs because we asked last week for everyone to send in some IAQs or infrequently asked questions, and boy oh boy did you all deliver.
You came through.
You came through the goods. So thank you so much.
Is that how you say? You came through in throats?
I'm not sure.
I don't know how idioms work.
But we do have a lot of IAQs. We won't get through all of them today, so apologies if you don't hear them in this episode. I've certainly taken notes, and they will be scattered throughout the rest of the next few episodes.
Yeah.
But here we go. Let's get stuck into them. So Erica asks, how do you decide if a game is worth keeping or trading away? Since there's always new games coming out, there is always good new games coming out. How do we decide what stays in the collection?
That's a great question. Do you want to say from your side, or do you want me to say what makes me
I can answer this pretty easily, I think. For me, it's about collectability. So if there's something in the collection that I know will be hard to get, if I wanted to pick it up later on, or something that's a special edition or has the Kickstarter goodies and now it's really impossible to get, I find it very hard to get rid of those items out of my collection, as everybody knows. But the other thing is just making sure, for me, a curated collection has a game for every occasion and every type of gamer.
Yeah.
So thinking about, do I have this adequately covered off in my collection? Like, for example, I think even though we're not really into party games, when we come across a great party game that does exactly what a party game should do, makes people laugh, gets everyone engaged,
breaks the ice,
it's
people feel relaxed.
Could not have too many of those. I actually really, when we find good ones, it's nice to have a variety of those. Likewise, I think our Gateway Plus games, the games that we use to try and entice our friends to try heavier games, we need a good range of those.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I would say our collection skews more heavy because those are the games we love.
Yeah, I think I agree. There's that whole, for the different occasions, is this covered? And then even there might be an occasion that is covered, but if a game is really unique or we just really enjoy it, it's like, well, why wouldn't we keep it? Or if it's, as you said, that variety of, for example, themes. For me, that it's like, I love this particular mechanic, and yes, we have several in this, but it's like, but if I feel more like doing this sort of theme as opposed to this other sort of theme, then that would be a consideration for me.
And to give people choice as well, so when they look at our collection, they can be like, oh, I really want to try that. That's important to me too. But I was thinking about this question because we've been looking at our collection as we're starting to pull them out of cupboards and get them onto shelves. And there's a few games that I really love. Or those games where you go into a game shop and you just can't help but stop at them and go, oh, I love this game. And there's a few games like that in our collection that we haven't played in a long time, but I still wouldn't be able to move them on because I just know that if I do play them again, I'm going to really enjoy it. And but then you start to think, well, why isn't that getting pulled off the shelf? And it's because there's something else that maybe fits that occasion or something newer. So it's a challenge. But we have at the moment, I would estimate, how many games do we have at the moment? 450.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I started to try and do the collect app to categorize and audit, and I got through 20, and then we had to go to the US, and then the app keeps sending me notifications of, hello, do you want to keep auditing your, yes, I will get back to it. It's just a time thing.
It is a time thing.
But, and I think that's why a lot of times games don't make it to the table. It's because we just don't have a lot of
And there's always new games coming in. So I'm not sure if we've helped with this question at all. But we do try and think about what is the role of the game in our collection. And we are getting better at that, I think. Now that there's so many great games coming out every year, you have to, otherwise you'd just be overwhelmed with games like we are currently.
You have to become more discerning as to, and more ruthless as to what's going to make the cut and not make the cut.
And a lot more great games are making it to retail. Kickstarter is not as exclusive with things as it used to be. And so I feel like there's less pressure to keep everything that's coming in the door as well. So thank you for that great question, Erica. Sarah says she is so keen for Maggie's solo Arkham Horror series. Now, you got a lot of feedback on that. There is a lot of pressure on you now to start filming some more solo.
Yes, I have been neglecting that. Well, we've been neglecting a lot of things, and that was one of the things that unfortunately kind of fell by the wayside. I am still very, very excited about that series or those types of videos, so I'm definitely keen to do more of that. So even with Arkham, I think that'll make for some fun.
Maybe until you do it, people can keep posting IAQs asking about it, so much so that it becomes an FAQ and Maggie will have to act on it. But Sarah also says, do you ever get a mental block trying a new game, feeling intimidated by it or just avoiding it so you're not disappointed?
That's a great question. I've never avoided it so that I'm not disappointed, because I'm more the type of person, I just want to know. I'm very impatient. I just want to get through it and find out. But definitely sometimes the mental block has been around if it's a very big game and there's going to be a big setup or a steep learning curve, and we don't have anyone who can teach us the game. That can happen. I remember that happening with some Splotter games where you're like, oh, this is going to be big, or this is going to... And sometimes they don't tend to have the best rule books. So there's a little bit of dread of the initial learning curve, even though you know that once you get past that, you'll probably enjoy it. That's probably the only time where I'll find myself kind of going... or if we're too tired, it's like there might be games that we really are looking forward to, and if we're too tired, you end up kind of reaching for a smaller box game. It's like I feel like I only have the brain power for this right now. Yeah,
I think for me, it's not wanting to lose myself in a rabbit hole that I can't dig myself out of. And so a great example of that is 18xx games. And I kind of suspect that I'm really going to enjoy them. And for some weird reason, that means I'm completely avoiding them. And we have some in our collection that we haven't played.
Yeah.
And people recommend them to us all the time. But I'm just like waiting for that perfect moment where someone's available to teach us. And because I'm both intimidated, excited, and concerned at the time it will take away from all of our other games. So, I don't know, because even the games themselves can be like epic experiences. Yeah. And that's the same a bit with starting a new legacy game or a campaign game.
Yeah, the commitment.
The commitment to the time is probably the biggest mental block for me.
I can see that.
Yeah. Sarah also asked, do we ever use like Tabletopia or something similar to test a game before backing it?
Rarely. Yeah, and I think part of it is because we're not big on digital gaming.
No.
As in, aside from video games, which obviously is a separate category. Yeah, and it probably it's because we're old.
Probably.
Got
to pick up the whole deck instead of one card.
Yes, like particularly when it's something where you manually have to do everything, where the kind of the computer isn't helping you facilitate that can be very challenging. And then it's like there's a different layer of drain then. It's not just the mental drain of the game and the strategy. It's also the layer of like trying to figure out the text. So we don't tend to as much.
No, I mean, we should. I think it's a great idea if you're looking at whether you should invest in a game.
Yeah.
But I think we're also very lucky in that we have each other. We're both really into gaming. We can share the kind of reading the rule books or getting to understand a Kickstarter page. So, I feel like there's not really a huge need for us. Yeah,
my hope is that I will start to get better at it. I always have this sort of hope that things are going to quiet down and I'm going to all of a sudden have more time to do some of these things.
That's not going to happen. But that's what we think every week.
Yeah.
When we set a really ambitious recording schedule and then everything gets bumped. Sean says, thank you for all of those questions, Sarah.
Yes.
Sean says, are we attending UK Games Expo this year? Which unfortunately is a very quick, easy question, which is no, we're not. It's in June every year, which is tempting because that's the UK's summer and our winter. So it would be nice to jet set out of our winter, but
maybe 1 year.
Yeah, definitely 1 year, I think. But
not this year.
And we have good friends in London as well.
Yes.
So we have friends in Germany. So it would be really nice to get over there. But unfortunately, this year's probably not the year.
No.
We just got back, and from that month off, and trying to get more time off work would probably be pushing our luck a little bit, I think.
A lot of things are now quite backed up in terms of things that we need to get on top of. Yeah,
absolutely. But we'd love to get there one day. Thank you, Sean.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Jonathan, do you each have a type of game that is a soft spot for you? One that you're more likely to back, even though rationally you know you shouldn't. For Jonathan, it's small solo games because they're cheaper and unlikely to be available later, which is a good pick, great pick.
Yeah.
For me, I can answer that really easily. Japanese games that have been translated into English.
Every time.
Yeah. And to some extent, like obscure games with, kind of like obscure games with a cult following. I would say that is like my Achilles heel. Yeah. That is when I find out a game is rare and that it's a small print run. I'm in on that.
I think for me, I wouldn't say it's a type of game that I have a soft spot for, but I definitely have a soft spot for artwork, for the aesthetics.
That's true.
So if something, even if gameplay doesn't look super complex, but the aesthetics are just like, I'm in love with them.
Such a themer.
I'll be like, oh, but maybe it'll be meatier. It's often not, but
it's often not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be, that's my Achilles heel, like incredibly, like aesthetically pleasing.
I wish we had the same
artwork.
Achilles heel, because now we're just buying lots of games that we rationally shouldn't. So
I tend to be like, I'm more easily talked out of it. So like I might fall in love with it and be like, oh, it's so beautiful. And then Amy will like use some logic on me and be like, yeah, that sounds reasonable. No, that's fine. I'll need it.
Well, also sometimes I just back it for you, because when you love something, I'm like, well, who am I to hold you back? But really, it's just an excuse for me to back more things. Jason asks, imagine that you both designed a game together and now your closest friends are playing it, and then they declare, oh, this part really reminds me of you. What element are they referring to? I love that. What a great question, Jason.
Very good question.
I'll answer it for you.
Okay.
No, I need to think about my answer.
Wait, was that the answer?
No. This really reminds me of Maggie. Because I was going to say,
decision is probably more your realm of things.
I know what it would be. It would be fiddly exchanging of resources.
Yeah, maybe.
So you've got to turn this pumpkin into 2 stone, and then this stone into 3 wood, and then this wood into something else.
With really cute wooden components.
Something like that, and then eventually you can get what you want. That would be a Maggie game. Oh, and there's no interacting with other players.
No,
not at all. Not at all. It's very pretty, and everybody's doing their own thing.
Yeah. That's pretty
What
accurate.
about me? What would something...
It's something that is the opportunity to have something that's really, really mean, but not directly attacking. It's like, well, I could not do that. That's sort of like, it's like, the ultimate effect is just devastating for the other person, but it's not done in like a battle, direct head-on way. It's like this indirect thing is going to really affect
your game.
Yeah,
I'm
destroy
really sorry
your
about
sandcastle that you've been building for. Yeah.
But actually, what's hilarious about this is last episode we talked about potentially that there was a card that was drawn to our attention that was that had my face on it.
Yeah.
And we'll put the image here because Richard, thank you for the photo, was able to substantiate the claim that I was in a game, and indeed it was. And the designer of Legacies has now reached out and said, "Hey, actually, I saw the video that you made with Alex from Board Game Co. And, I was so excited about Legacy. Still haven't got our copy, but super excited about it.
Yeah.
And so he saw that video, decided to put me into the game. But as Amelia, but where this is all leading is that the action of the card is actually to give away a benefit to your opponent.
Yes.
Which, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that's my worst nightmare. Yeah, that is actually my worst nightmare.
But luckily, your face in that is like...
It tells the story, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like you're not pleased about it.
I'm really not happy about it. So it's highly thematic, that card.
Well, the face and the face and the action match. But then the name of the card is, I think, from memory, it's like bashful.
Bashful, I'm being bashful. I'm handing over the benefit.
Yeah,
but it's probably not the first thing that people think of when they think of me. But I do look disapproving, so it all makes sense.
Yeah, that does work.
Yeah, so thank you for that great question. Craig says that Wet Hot's American Summer the Game would also be great for him. He loves that movie because you were talking about it last episode.
There's so many great stars, because it sort of came at a time where a lot of, like Amy Poehler, for example, didn't really have much of a name, and obviously now massive household name. There's just so many people in it that is just incredible, and that had like Elizabeth Banks as well, like is in and so I don't even know what game.
This is not the question.
I know, but it's like I don't even know if you turn that into a game. It would have to have. It's one of those things that as an IP, it would have to have cards with quotes from it, because it was one of those movies that I just kept quoting all the time.
Okay, would you like the question?
Oh, that wasn't even the question.
That was not the question. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Craig asks, what is our favorite game based on IP?
Okay. But our favorite game based on IP. That's a really... Oh, I know.
I know yours.
Stardew Valley.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, I don't even, because I was thinking...
It's cheating a little bit because it's a game based on a game.
Yeah, because I was thinking IP more like a TV, movie type thing. Yeah, but no, Stardew Valley would be my IP that I love. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think... I don't think there's that many of them in our collection. Like I was thinking over it, I don't think we tend to back many games that have IP. We don't really, a lot of games that are based on IP are either movies, games, or like books as well. And they tend to be fantasy a lot of the time, or more
Ameri style gaming. So it's more, kind of players on a map and doing, like, we have Jaws.
Less strategy, maybe. Yeah, I was going to talk about Jaws. I think Jaws is the only one in our collection that is based on a very strong IP. And I'm not a huge fan of the Jaws movies. I mean, I've seen them. Yeah. But the way that it's implemented in the game is really clever. Yeah. A one versus many where you can play as the shark. And it's just, there's a lot of nods to the movies.
I feel very loyal to the IP. Yeah.
But we haven't played a lot of them. So tell us in the comment section, what's your favorite game based on IP? We'll all answer Craig's question together
and get some ideas. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking, how do you translate Red Hot American Summer into an awesome board game? Yeah.
Okay, Benjamin asks, what is a theme that has not been used in board games that you'd like to see? Now, I'm going to do a throwback to that IP question because I was just thinking, what is an IP that I would actually love to see in a game? Yeah. I don't know if there's Survivor, the board game.
Oh, yeah.
But I would really do that. Enjoy that as long as it wasn't too... Like, I feel like it could be a little bit like too basic.
Well,
if it was a great...
Okay, as a Survivor watcher...
So, there would be social deduction involved. Yes. There would be two groups of people involved. Negotiations. And blind sides. Yep. Yeah. There would be lots of, like maybe blind bidding where someone's revealed to be like a traitor. Yeah. It would have to have a traitor mechanic. Yeah. That's exciting.
How do you
I would definitely play that.
And then some sort of skill-based thing that then grants immunity along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of other themes, I don't know. I just like the way that for me, you can think about it. I like the way the hobby's heading in that it's not always space and sci-fi themes. We're seeing a lot more like nature-based themes, like animals and plants and the natural environment. I really love those types of themes. Cute themes.
Yeah, cute themes. I seem to love everything with farming for some reason.
Oh, you do?
So farming, animals.
This is what's not been used in board games.
That has been used a lot. Yeah. I think potentially more fruit-based. Again, it has been used, but...
Did you say fruit?
Fruit, yeah.
Oh, that's very specific. I was going to say food. I do like...
No, because I don't know why. Like there are some, and I don't tend to enjoy food-based games, like recipe style. Although you do like recipe making. But I love fruit. I love things that come out of fruit. So baked goods and jams. So games consistently that have those themes I seem to really, really enjoy. And there's not that many of them.
No, actually I love the theme of Fruticola.
Yeah,
which was
jam making.
Yeah. And you pick the fruits and you make jam. Just that. I love those games that take a really simple concept and blow it out into a whole game. Yeah. And something that you haven't thought of before. Like the production of jam is like, there's lots of steps involved in that. I could see how that works with worker placement, and it does. So
it's delightful. We still haven't really picked a theme that hasn't really been done. Probably because it's not top of mind. I think that's probably why. Yeah. And it's one of those, as soon as I see it, I'll be like, oh, of course. Like, that's a great theme.
So that's a terrible answer to your question.
Yeah, so that's a non-answer.
Non-answer.
Because we're not creative enough on the spot.
We've been talking for a long time. Time for one more question. Coming from Karen. How do you decide which game to choose when it's just the two of us? Do we take it in turns to choose the game, or is it the winner of the last game, or something else?
It's never the winner of the last game, because it would be always Amy.
Because then I would always get to choose.
So it's usually when we have games that are sitting there, they're usually both on our minds. So we've got more. There's always all my words are leaving me right now.
Excitement. I would say that it's always based on excitement,
and then followed by brain capacity, which I obviously don't have a lot of right now. So kind of going, how much brain capacity do we have right now? And then all of the ones that we're excited by, then that's,
And
that's the matrix.
Sometimes it's also what you're willing to learn, because a lot of the games that we play on a week-to-week basis, a lot of them are new to us. And so, you know, Maggie might be finishing up something for work, and I'm like, well, that means I've got like half an hour before we can sit down and play games together. I've got time to learn a new one, so we'll do that. When we play our classics, it's always tends to be one of our favorites that the other person still enjoys. We very rarely get games off the shelf that we know the other person doesn't enjoy. Like, I think we save those games for when it's a different group of people. So most of the time we're both happy to play each other's picks, which is really nice.
Yeah, that is good. It's very handy.
And Karen also asked, what was our favorite food we ate from our last trip?
Ooh.
I mean, that donut.
Oh, yeah.
The donut was amazing.
Yeah, that donut was very good. The sidecar donut.
I'll tell you what we shouldn't have eaten so much of was Smash Burger that was inside the Rio, because we were there for Dice Tower West and we did not plan adequately for food consumption.
To be fair, it did the job. I wasn't sad
I wasn't angry about it for the first 2 burgers. After like the 6th burger, scoffed down in between game sessions, I was feeling pretty not happy with myself. My body was screaming out for nutrients, and there weren't any. But you know, in America, you can get a great burger. Like, it's
that's the place for it.
And I think for 2 weeks straight, we lived on tacos and burgers, so it was a bit destructive for our bodies.
Well,
and then, but that's what always happens when you go on holiday. You start and you just consume what that place is known for.
I'm trying to think if we had anything that was
non-stop
different that we hadn't had before.
I think because we hadn't been there in a while, we went back to a lot of our favorites. We had we had an amazing, very expensive grilled cheese sandwich at the market
in San Francisco.
In
San Fran. That caused a lot of controversy.
That did.
Apparently,
I did not know that Americans do not call it San Fran.
But it's like, and obviously it's a very Australian thing. It makes sense because we love shortening things, and it's just so quick and easy. San Fran.
San Fran.
And
everyone's like, please stop calling it San Fran. And now I'm just still doing it. But that's because in Australia, everybody calls it San Fran. Just like McDonald's, Macca's. There's no McDonald's. It's just Macca's. Anyway, it didn't really answer the question. Favorite foods. We ate a lot of good food. We ate a lot of terrible food for our bodies. We ate a lot of delicious food. And then, you know, at the end of the trip in the last week, we're always like, just salad. I'm just going to eat vegetables and salad for the rest of my life to make up for it, which we haven't done. We've gone straight back into pizza and everything else since being home. Anyway, let's talk about some games.
All right.
So we have 5 games here to talk about. The first one is a little game by Pencil First Games called Floriferous. Floriferous. It's hard to say, but easier to play. This game is all about taking your gardener and picking flowers. Picking flowers and making arrangements of flowers.
Strolling along the garden.
Strolling through the garden.
Flowers.
It is a beautiful, beautiful game. All the cards are like watercolor images of different flower types. So in this game, you have different flower types. So it might be a lily or a chrysanthemum or poppies. And then you have different colored versions of those same flowers. So a card has a different, if you will, a different color and a different suit to it. And what you're going to be doing is some very simple set collection in this game. You're going to be deciding what card you want in turn order based on a grid that is available to all players. And what's interesting is the game moves from left column to right column, and along the way you are choosing to move your gardener pawn onto a card and take that card. If you take the one at the top of the column though, you're going to have first choice in the next column. If you take one lower down, obviously your turn order is going to be lower down. But what's really interesting is right at the bottom of the garden, or the column of cards, is a scoring card. And so you want to collect these cards that are going to give you a lot of points at the end of the game. But that means that you're going to be going last in the next column, but it also means that you are giving up the opportunity to get another flower. And these flowers also have insect symbols on them, and there's different ways, different things that you need to do depending on what scoring cards you get. But then there's also these group objectives where you need to get certain combinations of cards, which creates a bit of competitive tension because, you know, everyone might need a ladybug card, and there's only one ladybug coming up. So everyone then competes over that. And you've got to think through the turn order as well. Like, I really need a poppy, so I really need to go first because there's only one of those cards. So it's a really interesting, cute little game. At the end of the game, you simply tally up all of your different scoring cards, and it plays over 3 rounds. It says here on the box, it's a relaxing game. It is a really relaxing game.
It is, it's fairly relaxing because you're quite literally strolling from one side of the board to the other through the garden as you're doing your selection of flowers, and then back once more. So it is just like you're walking around the garden and you've got these beautiful cards, but then there's a lot of different ways of getting those points. There is obviously that, you know, there's that thinkiness of going, with those combinations of icons, the earlier round you manage to get them in, then the more points you're going to get. And so that element is not competitive in the sense that if multiple people get in the same round, you're going to get the same number of points. It's competitive because there's finite cards. And so you might be going, as you said, like, there's only one ladybug. And so
I need to get that card.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this game. In fact, I think I was the person around the table who enjoyed it the most. Because it's really like a nice gateway game. But it also I can imagine taking this to my workplace, for example, and teaching a few people. It's only 1 to 4 players. But I could imagine kind of people learning about those trade-offs of scoring versus collecting more cards. I really like it. I think it's really clever. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's beautiful to look at. So I really enjoyed this game. I was surprised my mum didn't enjoy it as much because we played this with my mum and she loves flowers. So the theme, I was like,
she loved the artwork on it. She loved the actual aesthetic of it.
Yes, but she was a bit overwhelmed by the amount of choices that you can make because you are choosing what you want to score. It is a little bit hard to wrap your head around at first. I think if she played it more with us, she would get her head around it eventually. I'm sure there's many people that play this with their mums actually and really enjoy this. And
for me, it's just a little bit too abstract in the sort of set collection of it being the main core thing. But
I really
absolutely agree that it's really beautiful.
Yes,
definitely was
definitely staying in our collection. Something that I really enjoyed. That is Floriferous.
All right. The next game, let's talk about Birds of a Feather. So we don't actually, obviously this is a prototype because it's currently on Kickstarter. I don't have the box for it. But this was a little surprise for us. In Birds of a Feather, it's another bird watching.
And it is an older game.
And it is an older game that came out, actually it came out around the same time as the other big, well-known bird watching game, Wingspan. And people kind of keep comparing, which one should I get? Like, they're very, very different games. I wouldn't even be bothering trying to compare the two because they take very different spaces in terms of the occasion that you would play them in terms of the complexity, I wouldn't even bother trying to compare the two. But in Birds of a Feather, you are bird watching, and ultimately you're trying to get have the best variety of birds that you get to see in your bird watching trip. And so the way it plays, it can play up to 7 players, which is wonderful. It's simultaneous action, so we're all going to have some of like our hand of cards with our birds on them. The birds are in different habitats, so depending on the habitat. And essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get as many different birds of all the different habitats as you possibly can, because that's how you're going to be collecting points. The way you're going to be playing is everyone's going to be selecting one card out of their hand in secret and then playing that card, so everyone reveals at the same time. Whatever habitat you played, that's the habitat that you went to visit. And so you're going to be seeing any birds that are revealed from that habitat. So if I went to the mountains, I get to see and kind of tick off on my score sheet the bird that I played that's in the mountains. And then if anyone else played another bird in the mountains, then I'll get to see those as well. Those birds will then linger, so every bird that got played will linger, which means that for the next turn, if Amy was like, oh, there were a lot of birds in the mountain, that's a good tip. I'm going to go play a mountain and get to see all of those lingering birds as well, who will then go away after that bird. So you only after that round. So you only get one more round to kind of jump in on those birds
and mark them off your sheet.
And mark them off in your sheet. The one disrupting thing that can happen though is if someone plays a predator bird on that next turn, what will happen is, for example, if I then play a predator bird in the mountains, all the lingering birds that are in the mountains will be scared off. And so that's the one point where people go, no, like Amy had just played the mountain to try and capture and be able to see those birds, but they all got scared away. So this is a game that is fairly simple in its gameplay to the point where sometimes you can be deceived into thinking, oh, this is just luck, really. But there's definitely strategy because you actually know how many cards of each one there are, and you can obviously keep track. And so with many plays, the more you play it, the more you kind of go, oh, okay. And then the more you can kind of play around with, I'm going to strategically play this predator, or I know the predator's already come out, so it's pretty safe for me to try and see these birds. Yeah. So there's lots of layers
Definitely
of it.
Lots of layers. The more you play it, the more you recognize the timing of certain things. So when I first started playing it, I was like, I'm not sure. It feels like there's a lot of luck in the cards that you draw, and there still is. So the cards that you have at the beginning when you dealt a hand, they're the cards that you have to deal with. And sometimes you will draw a lot of one suit, which makes it easier to try and get the whole collection of that suit. And then you'll only get one or two cards from a different habitat, which makes it very difficult. But it just becomes a strategy of like, what order do I play these in? And then you can kind of try and like draw people in. So you play maybe a really appealing card from one habitat and then follow up straight away with a predator, knowing that you're going to not let anyone else get that. And so, it's this really interesting decisions. What I love about this game as well is the app implementation.
The scoring app,
Yeah, so there's a scoring app that is available, and it's very basic. It just calculates your score for you, but there's something really fun about marking things off a sheet and the completionist kind of feeling of like completing one set. Yeah. And when we've played this with our friends, that is what I think that is the thing that they really enjoy. It's just like, ooh, yes, I saw that and I saw that and I saw that. And it's just a really relaxing cup of tea game that you could get out anywhere. Like if you go out for dinner and you've just got some time waiting or whatever the case may be. It's really nice because it plays the big group. Yeah. I was very surprised with this game. At first I thought this was just going to be, nice and cute and a bit light. But actually it's just so much fun. And I get so much enjoyment out of it, just how much everybody around us loves this game.
From the first time I played it, I was like, there's something really special in here. And also because I found myself very thematically going, ooh, how lucky you got to see this bird, or you got to see, because some of those cards actually have more points. And if you do manage to see every bird in one habitat, you get additional points. So I kind of had those moments in the whole, no, the predator came out and scared them all. So thematically, I was actually there. It is very and the illustrations on the cards of the birds are also really beautiful.
And this one is the North America pack, isn't it? So that hints that there might be some expansion. With other birds, but
great, very light, and also the table real estate, the space that it takes. It doesn't take that much space. So we literally, the first time that we learned it, we had like the equivalent of a bar that we were sitting on, and there were 7 of us playing it. It plays very quickly because it's that simultaneous play. You can play it solo. Playing it solo was interesting. It's more just it's a lot more random, so you don't really get to. You essentially have a couple of pre-made sort of decks or kind of like decks that are going to be adding into that central pile. I kind of found that it's not the type of game that I would play solo because it becomes more about that luck of what kind of came out.
Yeah, and even with the 3 players and you have the another deck, it's because people are the fun thing about the game is people are kind of predictable and people want to optimize their own hand.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're playing as a dummy player and just flipping a card over and it's randomized, they don't act rationally.
Yeah.
And other players don't always act rationally either. But you can kind of predict what people are going to do, and that's the fun thing about the strategy in this game.
So even though it can play fine at 1 or 2 players, I would say probably a 3 and higher would be my preferred count.
Yeah. So
that is Birds of a Feather.
And the next game is a game called Dog Lover by AEG. And obviously, we both do love dogs. We have a dog.
Absolutely, yes.
And we had the predecessor to this game, Cat Lady, which we have played a little bit as well. I will say straight off the bat, I like Dog Lover more. And not because I'm more of a dog person, although that probably plays into it a little bit, but because in this game, there's a similar mechanic where you are drafting cards from a central grid. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking a whole set of cards from a grid, quite a lot of cards, 3 or 4 cards. But in this game, you do that on the basis of tricks that your dog has learned. So you start with a very basic trick that only allows you to take a row or a column. But as your dog learns new tricks, it allows you to take different patterns, kind of in that polyomino style, Tetris style shapes, from that central grid. And then what are you going to be doing with those cards? Well, you're going to be getting dogs, first of all. And those dogs need to be fed. So you'll also be collecting food, because if you don't collect enough food for them, by the end of the game, they're going to be worth negative victory points.
Well, they're hungry. That's not a good thing.
Of course. And along the way, you can also adopt dogs as well from the shelter, which are going to give you different and interesting ongoing abilities.
Or unique scoring abilities at the end of the game as well.
And then you can also, there's set collection, so you can get different types of toys. There's different, what is it called when they connect something to the dog? Just training?
You've got these
thematically, I've forgotten what it's called.
Yeah, I've forgotten
but there's a card that attaches, I think there's one here, the traits. So a dog can have a trait, which then creates like this really OP kind of scoring condition that can drive your strategy in this game. And what I really liked about Dog Lover is that there are many different avenues for points, and that you can kind of play that out however you like. It's a small box game, but there's a bit to it. So there's a bit more setup than you might expect with this small box. It takes up more table space than you would think it does. But if you love dogs, it's kind of like a must-have, I think. And every friend that we've played it with who really loves dogs,
quite light. It's a light to some thinkiness in it. It's still, even though like the cards are really beautiful and it still kind of feels a little bit abstract for me in terms of the set collection. I mean, the things that you're doing make sense. Actually, I will say one of my favorite things is the tricks, which determines how you collect the cards. The shape of the trick
looks like the dog.
Yeah, looks so. So for example, there's one that's dancing, and so you've got like the dancing. It's like the dog is like this, and that's how usually they dance if you teach them to dance. And so you're getting to collect the corner cards and the middle card. So I did enjoy that, but I think overall, it sort of it didn't trigger that part of my brain that feels like I'm thematically in that world. It was more the kind of calculation of the points and this. And I was really bad at it. I will also add. But,
I think it is far more thinky than Cat Lady, actually.
Yes, Cat Lady
there's a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot more layers.
Straightforward, I should say.
Yeah, there's a lot more layers to it. But I mean, one of my favorite things is just watching a person play this who really loves dogs, and then when you adopt a dog, I have to say that often the cuteness of the dog would override the actual ability that dog was giving, or the scoring ability, because you're just like, oh, I love pugs, and there's the pug.
Emotionally invested.
And I am going to draft that pug. I don't care how it impacts my strategy. So that's really cute and very in line with the name of the game, and that is Dog Lover.
Yeah. All right.
The next game is called Cursed Court.
I'll let you talk about this one, because this was something that you were quite...
It is really heavy. I just realized as I picked it up in one arm.
I can hold
it.
So
Cursed Court, or Cursed Court. Cursed course, is a game that plays 2 to 6 players, which is a pretty high player count, and one that became, you know, those games where you see it one time for sale and then you don't buy it, and then for some reason it sells out in the country, and then it just becomes a grail game.
Yeah.
This was that game for me. I knew about that it had some interesting mechanics. I wanted to buy it, and then of course it just became completely sold out in Australia. And actually what's funny is we were at Gamma, and we met the publisher, and they had one copy of this game available there, and it was just a copy to show. And I told this story about, oh my goodness, I've been trying to get this game for so long in Australia. And so they were so kind to actually gift us this copy of the game. So of course, as soon as we got home, I wanted to play it, and we played it with 4 of us.
Yes.
And this game is interesting because it essentially is just a betting kind of game. You have a deck full of cards, and these cards have characters on them, and you are trying to gamble on which of the cards are going to come out of the stack. But what's interesting is at the start of every year, you are going to have a card that goes in between each player. So, you know, there was a card between me and Maggie, and a card between me and the person on my right. And at the start of that year, you get to peek at the ones that are next to you, so one on either side. You get to have a look at them, and that's giving you a clue as to at least 2 of the characters out of 9 that are shown on the board that are going to appear this year. And then the rest of the game is really just taking these very sharp crowns, I'll come back to that.
Incredibly dangerous
crowns, and betting on different combinations that you think are going to come out by the end of the year. But part of that is trying to deduce what the other people around the table have seen already, because you can see their bets and you're like, that's interesting. They put a bet on the Jester. I don't know that the Jester's coming out. So what do they know that I don't know?
Are they bluffing, or is that real?
Yeah, and then it's kind of interesting because, you know, one time we were playing and someone did bluff, and a bluff very early on, where it's like, okay, well now I know that character's going to come out. And so I'm going to spend the rest of my crowns gambling on these different patterns appearing, because you can either gamble on a certain type of character appearing, but then all the rest of the spaces are different patterns. So the 4 in this corner are going to appear, or the diagonal is going to appear.
Yeah.
And so that's all you're doing throughout this game. The other key thing is that you can bump other people's bets. And so you do start with 20 coins, or these big chunky plastic tokens.
Yeah, kind of almost like poker chips.
Yeah, like poker chips, but big and plastic. And you're going to have to bid double the other person if you want to bump them out of that space. And so it does become a decision of, what am I really sure of, and that's going to get me a lot of points, and do I really throw a lot of coins at that, or do I hold back? So it's a really interesting game. It's not going to be for everybody. That is absolutely certain. If you do not enjoy a bit of bluffing and just a really light kind of gambling style game, it's not going to be for you. I really enjoyed it, and actually my brother was playing with us, and he really enjoyed it too, and we were both trying to kind of bluff out each other, which I think is like, we kind of had thought about that next layer of strategy and how you could kind of manipulate the people around the table. So that I really enjoyed about it. Not everybody likes that style of game. It probably wasn't for you so much.
I enjoyed it okay. So it's the kind of game that I would play once and then I'd want to move on to something else, but I'd be happy if other people are kind of playing it. I did like that. It took me a little while to wrap my head around the fact that it doesn't really matter. Like the amount that you're bidding doesn't make you win back more, which is what you usually think. It's like, oh, if I bid more, then I win more. So no, the bidding is just to protect that spot and protect it from someone else doubling your bid and kicking you out, essentially. So that was one thing to kind of, okay, once I understood that, then it's more around, okay, well, what are the places that I'm going to want to have presence in? And also where I'm going to get the most points. Because the way it kind of works is the bigger the combo, the more points you get for that. Or the more a card comes out, if you're just bidding on the one character, then the more points you're going to get.
Yeah, sure. So at the start of each round, there's a public character that is revealed too. So everybody has that knowledge.
Yeah.
What was interesting as well is like thinking later as we kept playing, the strategy evolves, and of course with every game, but then you start to think about, what do I want to reveal early versus later? It's much better to go on a pattern early than a person, because with a person you're clearly giving away that that's the one that you know is going to come out. So it's just kind of interesting, and just to talk about the most dangerous piece ever included in a board game.
In any game.
In any game, is the little crown tokens that are in here are ridiculously sharp.
They are so unnecessarily sharp.
So sharp that you've got to be careful almost picking them up, because if you dropped one of these and stood on it, it would pierce your foot.
It's game over. It is. It's like a hook. It's like a fishing hook. Sharp.
Too sharp. I don't know what they were thinking, but it is kind of the most hilarious component.
Why is it so sharp?
So sharp and dangerous.
No need for it to.
No, there's absolutely no need.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who doesn't enjoy bluffing games, I actually enjoy this a lot more, because in this one you're bluffing with your actions. Yeah. You're not having to like tell a tale and like point fingers or anything like that, which I really dislike. So this actually gives me an opportunity to do bluffing and deduction in a much more comfortable, non-confronting sort of way. So I did enjoy that element of it.
I don't think it's a game that will get off the shelf a lot, but at the same time, it's really unique in our collection, and that's why I wanted to try it. I really love seeing how these different mechanics are going to play out.
And I can see groups that would love this.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, also this could be a game that you could play if there's drinks involved, because it's very light. The decisions you're making are extremely light, or if you're just wanting to catch up and chat at the same time. So that's Cursed Court, and it plays up to 6 players, which is great.
And our final game today is Whirling Witchcraft. Now, Whirling Witchcraft is, again, magic. But I really love the aesthetic of this, and it reminds me of the Bloody Inn. I think that's why I love it so much. In Whirling Witchcraft, we are playing as witches, and we're all kind of concocting our potions and mixing our cauldrons. And so ultimately what we want to do is be able to make sure that we don't overload our workspace with too much of any one ingredient, but also at the same time we want to make sure that we overload our rival witches with those excess components, because that's what's going to be what gives us points. Because essentially what's happening is that if you have too many, you're going to, your concoction is going to blow up, or something will happen. Madness will ensue if you have too many toads in your workspace, or in your, I don't even know what you call your magical room where you do magic in. So interestingly, in this game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using different cards, or playing cards that allow you to turn some of those different ingredients. So you have different color cubes, which are all the different ingredients that would be going into your potions. So turn them into other things. So allow you to use them up to free up your individual board, and turn them into hopefully more different colored ingredients that you're going to put into a cauldron to give to your neighbor witch.
Yeah, so everyone's going to be passing the cauldron round to their right, and then passing the remaining cards that they have round to their left. So there's these two kind of things happening in terms of movement around the table. And you are trying to, as Maggie mentioned, overload the other player's board. And so the strategy is to really look at the combination of cards that you're collecting, and in a lot of cases find a combination of cards that's going to build up in your tableau, because the more cards you have as the game goes on, the more exchanges you're doing.
You build a bit of an engine as well.
A bit of an engine happening. And you maybe want to produce a single color. So I'm going to collect all of the cards that produce green, because then I can very quickly overload the next player's green cubes.
Or you might end up with too many blue spiders. And so you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to have a lot of blue spiders. I have too many. I need to make sure that I'm going to start adding cards to my tableau that require blue spiders, so I can offload them to produce other stuff to overload other people.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting dynamic of watching what is being given to you and you need to get rid of it, and watching what you're giving the person next to you, because you need to do that quite quickly, because the game will end when anyone gets to 5 points, and 5 points is simply 5 cubes that did not fit on the board of the player next to you that you're passing to.
Them with.
Yeah. And so it's a bit of a race as well. There's some other elements to the game where you start with a asymmetric character for the regular game. There's a basic version where you all have the same character, but then eventually you'll have these different characters that are going to give you different ongoing abilities. And then there's also the
Arcana book.
Book.
So you have these different, so as you're playing cards, they will have 1 or 3 different icons, or sometimes no icons, but these icons will allow you to then, as you're kind of cumulatively adding them onto your Arcana book, to trigger unique abilities. So when they come to the right column, so whenever they're uneven numbering, then you get to either eliminate any 2 items. So if the crow sort of eats 2 items from your bench, so you kind of get to offload that, or like add different benefits, one-off benefits. But what's interesting about it is each of the cards that you're playing into your tableau, they're the things that move your Arcana along to allow you to enact these abilities. And so there's a decision that needs to be made about whether the card that you're playing is also helping you achieve what you want to achieve with those bonuses. That was my least favorite part of this game. I felt like it was unnecessarily fiddly. And I wish there was a different way of tracking like when you could use a power versus not, because the idea of the powers I really did like, because it's the only thing that can usually be a saving grace where you're like, I'm about to be overloaded and give all these points to my opponent. But luckily I've got the crow, which means I can get rid of 2 elements, or I just want to overload them by adding 1 ingredient. It's just, I like the idea of them. I didn't like the implementation of that part of the game, but I really love the rest of the game. I really think it's very clever and unlike anything else we've played. And I really like how quickly it builds to the point where you're like, you start getting that engine. You're like, oh, now I'm really cooking, essentially, and I'm really overloading the person.
Cauldrons.
The cauldrons are really cute as well.
Cute.
The cardboard 3D made cauldrons that you pass around are also pretty cute. I think, I love the speed of it, and I actually really enjoy how variable the length of the game can be. Sometimes the games are a little bit longer. Sometimes someone let themselves get overloaded really quickly and then just get, the person that overloaded them got all those points straight away, and it's like, yep, game's over. Or it's like, okay.
I think in the last game where my brother was like, here's 8 spiders, here's 8 more spiders, and I was just like, I cannot deal with all these spiders. And I lost the game very quickly for the whole table. So I guess one of those things is like, I wonder if there's going to, obviously we've played it several times, but we haven't played, like I can't say that I'm an expert at every single one of the individual personas that you can play at. So I wonder if some of them may be a little bit overpowered, but I guess it's the kind of game that it's like, because it's quick, it's short. And then you change your characters.
You just change characters. It's probably not that big a deal.
But it is really interesting mechanically. You have to also enjoy games. I think it's really great for a family game because it's not too difficult, but also there's that mean element that often causes, a lot of laughter. It's like, because the whole game is based on you destroying, the only way you can win is by destroying the person on your right.
That's the other thing. If you don't enjoy meanness or being nasty to somebody else, this is entirely what you're doing. Is you're being nasty by
everybody knows that
gifting them something that they really don't need.
So you're trying to overwhelm them. But that is Whirling Witchcraft, and that is 5 more games. And don't worry, there's still a lot more small box games for us to get through. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you again to everybody who reached out to say congratulations on our nuptials. We are very excited to finally be married. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with more board game content. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Otherwise, we'll be back soon. But bye for now.
Bye.